All right, so here in the rent roll tab, uh, you're going to need a little bit more experience with Excel, not much, and I hope to at least explain on this video, how to do the basic stuff to basically enter in the information here. So obviously you don't want to enter in data one by one. That takes way too much time. You just want to copy and paste it into the sheet and have it all formatted for you correctly. So you can see here at the top here, we've got the unit count, how many units there are. This is set up to be 300 units. So you could enter in apartments up to 300 units using this model. If you need to use more, just let me know. I'm happy to add more for you, or you could just simply, select how many you want, copy, and then I did Control C, and then you could right click and say Insert Copy Cells, and it will fill in and give you more options. So if you have more than 300 units, either let me know or you can do that yourself. So at the top here, I've got everything already labeled. So unit count, property. This is if you're using or buying like a portfolio of properties. And so you want to have like the property name or location and its address. But normally I leave these blank because we don't typically look at portfolio properties. We look at individual properties. So the address is always the same. So the unit number, this is where you enter that in, the tenant's name, or you could just say it's occupied or vacant, for example. Square foot, the floor plan. So is it, a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, a specific floor plan. So what I recommend is that you actually enter in as many floor plans as possible and separate out somehow the renovated units versus the unrenovated units so that you could actually see the average rent for the renovated versus the average rent on the unrenovated. So one way that you could do that is just say, hey, this is a 1 by 1 R for renovated, or a 1 by 1 classic, so those are your 2 different floor plans. And what's going to happen down here at the bottom is it's going to automatically pull those in. So 1 by 1 classic, 1 by 1 renovated. It's showing that there's one of those each right now. So it's pulling these rows down here, starting at 310. It's pulling all the information from above and putting it into these tables. Okay. So this is the totals, the total market rents. These are going to be your overall average market rents. I've got minimums. So what is the minimum rents for each of these floor plans, and what is the maximum for each of these floor plans? And if you have the lease expiration and the move-in dates, this table right here shows you how many tenants or the length of residency for these tenants. So there you go, length of residency. So it's automatically calculating into this table. So the great thing about this rent roll tab is really you just have to enter in the information up here in these 300 rows and these columns here, and everything else is calculated for you. So that's what's so great about this. So you could enter in the beds, baths. If it's renovated, I've got a drop down menu here. Is it classic? Is it partially renovated or fully renovated? And then you're going to get into now the details. So market rent. Market rent is usually dictated by the on-site property manager that has been managing this property for the seller. So you can enter in the market rent that's listed on the rent roll here and what their leased rent or the contractual rent is for this property. Any other scheduled charges or the total scheduled charges. So it'd be the rent plus all the other fees. What the security deposits are, if you've got a record of those, the move-in date, the lease start, and the lease expiration. And then if you have details on all the other fees, you could start entering in those fees here. So you could call this pet rent, right? For example. And when you enter in the pet rent here, and if you scroll down down to the summary pages, it automatically just changes it to pet rent for you. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just go back, pet rent. So, and then I'm going to get into this, these other tables here in a minute. So the best way I recommend doing this is grabbing your rent roll. So this is the rent roll right here. This is as of June 12th, 2024. So come back into this tab here, and this is the rent roll day of June 12th, 2024. And when you do that, and when you enter in that date, everything now is reflective off of, oh, that's not the right acquisition date. I'll get that fixed. But the acquisition date would be, nope, that's not there. So let's just say that your acquisition date is, today is being June, let's just say August 1st, 2024. Okay. So it's going to look at the next month, which, after you buy this, and the month one being after you acquired it. So September, October, November, and for the subsequent months. Okay. So what I typically do is when I look at this rent roll and I compare it to basically the columns here. I was just trying to get this to snap. There we go. Okay. When I could copy it column for column in here, or what I typically do is I just copy this tab. So I'm going to move or copy. I'm going to copy the rent roll, create a copy of it. I'm going to move it to the end. And then that way, this is my edited column. And then I arrange the columns here based on the columns in sequence here. So floor plan, occupancy status. So then I would move basically this over to here. Insert cut cells. So unit, tenant, square foot. Floor plan, which is next. How many beds and baths. And I'll keep doing that. So I'm going to pause the video here, and I'm just going to get this table basically set up to look like this table. Okay, so I have gone through and reorganized the columns so that it matches my columns in my underwriting spreadsheet. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy everything from basically unit number to income, other income, and highlight this all the way down. Okay. Go ahead and hit copy. And then come back to here. Whoop, sorry. It's freezing up my computer a little bit. Okay. So make sure that you're in the unit column, because that's the first column on the other list, and in row 1. And what I do is I right click and I just go ahead and paste values. Bam. Okay. So I'll give it a second to think. All right. So now, we've got the unit number, the tenant, square foot, floor plan. Everything looks good here so far. Beds, baths, renovated, market rent, actual rent, move-in date, lease expiration, and additional income. So this is called addition. Okay, perfect. All right, and so then let's go ahead and verify that there's 136 units, that I've captured everything. Yep, 136 units. Okay, perfect. And then What I like to do is I made a comment right here. Add additional units above this row, or to kind of clean things up, I go ahead and just delete the rows that I no longer need. Okay, so coming up to here, go ahead and delete. There we go. All right, so now everything's been reorganized. So you can see now the unique types. So we've got 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, simply modern. This means that it's been renovated. And you could even see here, renovated. 74 units have been renovated in that simply modern. There's 2 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, simply modern, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, simply modern. The unit counts for each, so there's 136 each. Ones, twos, ones and twos. Total square foot. How many of them are vacant? What you might have to do if just kind of double checking. Sometimes the property manager labels them goofy. This is where I have these drop down menus. So you can see it says occupied or vacant. So if it says something other than vacant, it's not going to pull in that detail because it's specifically looking for the word vacant. Oh, sorry, I'm going a little too fast here. So it's pulling in all the vacant units, which percentages are vacant, what's the occupancy, how many have been renovated, and then our total market rent and our actual contractual rent. So this is basically what's known as the loss to lease. So there's $10,000 per month, which is lost to the potential market. Okay. It would add in the other charges, security deposits, what the average rent is for each of these units. This is super helpful. Now that you start looking at it, it's $1,367. Average rent, and then it shows the average rent for each of these floor plans, what the additional income is for each of these floor plans, etc. And then in the following tables down below, it shows down a breakdown of the average unit rents again for each of these, and then what's the maximum, this is the minimum. So these are the minimum rents collected for each of these unit floor types. And then the maximum. So you can see that the max rent is actually over the market rent, $1,612 versus $1,488. You might have to go back in here and kind of clean some things up because you can see that there's some zeros in here. Especially if it is a zero, that would change your overall average, right? So, it takes a little bit of cleaning up to do it. In what I normally do is I enter in what the average rent, since this is a vacant unit, this vacant unit, so it's a 1 bedroom 1 bath simply modern. I just come down here to look at the average for 1 bedroom 1 bath simply modern. Its average rent is $1,264, so I would just enter in $1,264 into that number. In a way that I do that, and just kind of cleaning things up. So then I look at, let's look at all the vacant properties. So I did this by clicking this little drop down menu, unselecting all, selecting vacant only, and this just shows me the number of vacant units. Okay. And so, I got 2 different floor plans here. I can even filter it even further and just say, hey, let's look at all the 1 bedroom 1 bath simply modern. And then enter in the average rent, which was $1,264. So $1,264. Okay. All right. Let's look at the 2 bedroom 2 bath. 2 bedroom 2 bath, simply modern. 1,606. All right, so now we've got greater potential rent here based on those vacant units, right? Still calculating. It's calculating my loss to lease based on the information above too. So, but it gives me a more accurate average rents for these units. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take off those filters, put everything back. Okay, take this one off too. Okay. All right, so now if we scroll on over, now we can look at the lease expirations per month and come on down. So you can see the different floor plans here, total number of leases, lease expirations, and how many have expired. So there's a little bit of a disconnect here between the total number of units and the number of leases. It's because it's based on the expected closing date. So there's a couple months there that that information isn't in here. So those are missing, right? But you can see here, there's basically the lease expiration schedule. During the slow periods, it's about 5 leases that expire each month. And in the busy periods, 10 to 16, excuse me, or 11. Excuse me. So this comes in handy when you're looking at renovation schedules and your renovation velocities. And then this table here just shows, what is your average unit rent if rents are increased to market upon lease expiration. So this is just another table that, shows you what your average rent can grow up to when these units expire and they're immediately put onto market rent. What is now the average rent? So you could look at this from almost like an organic rent growth sort of analysis. So growing each month, 14, 10, 14, 12, 14, 17. So it's growing every month to catch up with that. Now, if we look over at our, all right, so a length of residency. So now we've got 136 units, 100% of the units are accounted for. And it looks like there's a huge number of percentage of tenants that have been there between 1 and 5 years, which is great. This property shows that it has great retainage. Okay, so now the information that was entered in the rent roll, once you kind of get things cleaned up and things look good, we now move on to the unit mix tab. So the unit mix tab, there's a little bit more work for you to do physically to the model here. I wish I had a more of a turnkey solution for you, but I'm sorry, I don't. I haven't quite figured this part out yet. But if anybody has any suggestions out there, please let me know. But right now we got, here we go. So we got the summary of basically all the units, the beds, baths, unit count, square foot, and the average in-place rents. So what you need to do, this is something that you actually need to do, and I've highlighted that here. So we need to delete all blank rows in the chart above, including this row, for the following tables to calculate. So all you have to do is just highlight these rows right here, right click, say delete, give it a second. Okay, there we go. All right, so now these tables populated, which is great. Okay, now you might have to, what this is looking for, it's looking for the 1 ones, 2 ones, and so on. So it's actually searching up the 1 bedrooms and 1 baths. If you have 1 and 1.5, for example, here's a 2, 2.5, there's 0 there. So it's not going to pull in any information. But if you have anything odd as far as a unit count or a unit mix, you could go ahead and change that number. So like, for example, if I did 2, 1 again, this is going really slow now. Yeah, so 30, but I'm doubling up. Okay. So we're just going to go ahead and delete these extra rows just because they're no longer needed. And you'll see what happens here at the end when this is all said and done. And I apologize, this is starting to run a little slow, probably because I got a few models open and I'm recording a video. So bam, okay. Now you can see here, we've got 56% 1-1s, 22% 2-2s, and 22% 2-2s. So this chart is also pulled into the investment summary now. So that's why you've got to delete those extra rows for this chart to work. Okay, so now on the inputs tab, I went back and I changed the formula in here to the average in place rents pulling from the rent roll. So it's now at 1387. The average square foot 787. So that's pulling it from this unit tab here, 787 and 1388. Okay. And then all the other information is starting to populate within here. Okay, this is great. Everything's starting to work out now. And then as far as the market rents and the pro forma renovated, this is now where you could either enter in the information from the property manager, from the rent roll, as far as the market rents, or you could work with your own property manager to figure out what these market rents are going to be. And then at the same time, what is the pro forma renovated rents going to be? Where are you taking these rents? So you can start entering in that information. For now, I'm just going to use the average in place. Here we go. Average in place market rents for each one of these. So I'm going to hit Control C to copy that. And then I'm going to right click and then values only. So it keeps the formatting. Okay. And everything's now calculated. Perfect. Okay. And now we're going to say, what is the pro forma renovated? So you could actually go back to the broker offering memorandum and then just see what do they recommend for each of these units. So they got the pro forma gross possible. So for the 1 bedroom, 1 bath, they're saying 13. This is market and pro forma possible. So let's just say 1366. And keep in mind, this offering memorandum is over a year old. This data, the new data that I got, is basically off-market information. So a lot of this information is definitely outdated. So he was saying 13, or the broker was saying 1366. In here, 1366 for 1 bedroom for both. And we're going to assume now what's happening with this 1 bedroom, 1 bath, simply modern. This is, already renovated, but we can renovate it a little bit more. And this 1 bedroom is, it hasn't been renovated. It's a classic unit. But once we get it renovated to basically the same level of renovations, we should be achieving 1366 for both. These two numbers should match up in the end. Okay. So 1366, again, 1822. And then 1891. Okay, so look at that. The maybe I'll expand this a little bit more. Okay, so this is the we're taking it from basically 1388. The market is 1435, and then the pro forma renovated rents at 1582, which is a $195 increase. Well, we go back here now, and the average rent increase we're going to say 195. Okay. And then are we going to renovate all 100 units, or sorry, all 136 units? Are we only renovating 100? Are we only renovating maybe the ones that haven't been renovated yet? And that's where you start kind of playing with these numbers and getting a better sense. Okay. So that's it for the rent roll and the unit mix information. Next is the T12, and I'll explain that one in just a second.